Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Nishit Kumar, and with me is R.S. Raghu, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate Amrit Mahotsav on Friday to commemorate 75 years of India's independence. First Quad Leaders Summit to be held virtually on Friday. Prime Ministers of India, Australia, Japan and President of the US to participate in the summit. India grants 300 million Sri Lankan rupees to build 144 transit housing units in Mannar, Sri Lanka. Iran, Eswatini, Bahamas and Benin receive Made in India COVID vaccine under Vaccine Maitri initiative. U.S. Congress passes $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill. UN Security Council condemns violence against peaceful protesters in Myanmar, calls for release of detained persons. And in cricket, India to clash with England in the first 2020 match in Ahmedabad on Friday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Amrit Mahotsav and flag off Padyatra from Sabarmati Ashram, Ahmedabad in Gujarat on Friday to mark 75 years of India's independence. The Mahotsav is a series of events to be organized by the government to commemorate the 75th anniversary of India's independence. It will be celebrated as Jan Utsav in the spirit of Jan Bhagidari. The curtain raiser activities are beginning from tomorrow, 75 weeks prior to 15th August 2022. More from our Ahmedabad correspondent.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will flag off reenact of historic Dandi March, which will joined by 81 Gandhian followers. They complete the 386-kilometer long march in 21 days on its original route from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi in South Gujarat. Patriotic songs, plays and dance performances will be organized during the Dandi March to highlight the socio-economic changes taking place in the field of cleanliness, environment, security and water conservation in India. Yogesh Pandya, AIR News, Ahmedabad.
Culture and Tourism Minister Prahlad Singh Patel will lead the Padyatra from Sabarmati Ashram, Ahmedabad tomorrow on the beginning of the glorious Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It was on the 12th of March 1930 that Gandhiji began the Dandi March from Sabarmati Ashram against the salt laws along with 81 Padyatris. During the Padyatra, the Culture Minister will stay overnight with the Padyatris at the place of night halt, and the Padyatra will start from the same place the next day. Prime Minister Modi will also launch various other cultural and digital initiatives for the India at 75 celebrations and will also address the gathering at Sabarmati Ashram. A national implementation committee headed by the Home Minister has been constituted to chalk out policies and planning of various events to be undertaken under the commemoration. State and union territories governments are also organizing programs all over India from Friday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan will create wealth and value for the whole of humanity. He says this initiative is good for the world. The Prime Minister was speaking at the launch of Kindle version of Swami Chidbhavanandaji's Bhagavad Gita on Thursday.
Today, the 1.3 billion people of India have decided their course of action. They are going to make India Atmanirbhar or self-reliant. In the long term, only a self-reliant India is in everyone's interest. At the core of Atmanirbhar Bharat is to create wealth and values not only for ourselves but for the larger humanity. We believe that an Atmanirbhar Bharat is good for the world.
The Prime Minister said the world is fighting a tough battle against a global pandemic, and when the world needed medicines, India did whatever it can do. Appreciating the outstanding spirit and courage shown by the people of the country during COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister said our scientists worked in speedy manner and came out with indigenous vaccine. Highlighting the importance of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in life, the Prime Minister said it makes us think, inspires us to question and keeps our mind open.
Never forget the famous verse, Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. It will free our mind from fear of failure and put our focus on our action. The chapter on Jnana Yoga deals with the importance of true knowledge. Bhakti Yoga, teaching us the importance of devotion, is touched upon in one of the chapters. Every chapter has something to offer to cultivate a positive frame of mind. Above all, the Gita reinforces the sentiment that each one of us is a spark of the Supreme, the all-powerful Divine.
The Prime Minister said e-books are becoming very popular, especially among the youth. Therefore, this effort will connect more youngsters with the noble thoughts of Gita. He urged the young people to adopt the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is practicable and relatable.
This is a unique program. An e-book of the Gita with the commentary of Swami Chidbhavananji is being launched. I would like to appreciate all those who have worked on this. Thanks to this effort, tradition and technology have merged. E-books are becoming very popular, especially among the youth. Therefore, this effort will connect more youngsters with the noble thoughts of the Gita.
The first Quad Leaders Summit will be held virtually on Friday. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of Australia Scott Morrison, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and US President Joe Biden will participate in the first Leaders Summit of the Quadrilateral Framework.
The leaders will discuss regional and global issues of shared interest and exchange views on practical areas of cooperation towards maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. The summit will provide an opportunity to exchange views on contemporary challenges such as resilient supply chains, emerging and critical technologies, maritime security and climate change. The leaders will also discuss ongoing efforts to combat COVID-19 pandemic and explore opportunities for collaboration in ensuring safe, equitable and affordable vaccines in the Indo-Pacific region. With Sobhagyakar, Anupam Mishra, AR News, Delhi.
Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle on Thursday laid the foundation stone for the construction of 144 transit housing units for pilgrims along with Sri Lankan Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga in the presence of Rev. Dr. Emmanuel Fernando, Bishop of Mannar at the Shrine of Our Lady of Madhu. A report.
The project will be implemented through a grant of around 300 million SLR by Government of India, keeping in line with India's ongoing commitment to carry out people-centric projects in Sri Lanka. Mr. Gopal Bagle has also attended Shivratri Puja at Tirukateshwaram Temple in Sri Lanka, where the Government of India had carried out a restoration project of 326 million Sri Lankan rupees. In a tweet, the High Commissioner of India in Colombo said, High Commissioner commenced his visit to Northern Province by seeking divine blessings of the sacred Tirukateshwaram Temple. It added he attended Shivratri Puja and prayed for the well-being of the people of Sri Lanka and India. India has been increasingly undertaking projects across Asia to restore places of cultural importance. Under the Restoration Initiative, India is developing the cultural sites of Tha Prohm Temple, Angkor, Cambodia, Cham Monuments, Vietnam, Tirukateshwaram Temple, Mannar, Sri Lanka, Wat Phao Temple Complex, Laos and Pashupatinath Temple, Nepal. VC Pramod for World News.
India has taken up a number of reconstruction and developmental projects in Nepal. In a statement, the Embassy of India in Kathmandu said the reconstruction work of Sri Bishnu Devi Secondary School has begun with Indian assistance in Kathmandu on Monday. The Sri Bishnu Devi Secondary School is being reconstructed at a cost of Nepali rupees 64.9 million and will be built as per earthquake resilient reconstruction norms of the government of Nepal. India has committed $50 million for reconstruction of total 71 educational institutions across 8 districts of Nepal affected by 2015 earthquake. Under Indian reconstruction grant to Nepal, a total of 147 health buildings will be reconstructed and 28 cultural heritage sites will be restored in 11 districts of Nepal which were affected by earthquake in 2015. Under the Vaccine Maitri initiative of the Government of India, 3 nations have received the Made in India COVID-19 vaccines. Planes carrying the consignments of vaccine doses landed in Iran, Eswatini, Bahamas and Benin on Thursday. In another development, top Cambodian leaders including President of the National Assembly Heng Samrin, President of Senate Se Shum and Deputy PM of National Assembly Samdek Heng Samrin, among others, on Thursday received the first shot of AstraZeneca's Made in India Covishield COVID-19 vaccines. In a tweet, the Embassy of India in Phnom Penh said the Cambodian leaders got the first shot of AstraZeneca's Make in India vaccine. On February 6th, India had approved the supply of 100,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Cambodia under the Vaccine Maitri initiative. The supply was approved in response to Cambodian Prime Minister Samdek Hun Sen's request to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for assistance in the supply of COVID-19 vaccines.
India has lauded the efforts of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, for countering terrorism and stressed that it will continue to fight against other new and emerging threats. Speaking at United Nations Security Council open briefing, India's Deputy Permanent Representative to UN K. Nagaraj Naidu on Wednesday said OSCE was among the first regional organizations to strongly condemn the terrorist attack on the Indian Parliament in 2001. He added, India believes that OSCE has an important role to play in the country's continued fight against terrorism and other new and emerging threats. While noting the ongoing global counter-terrorism efforts and contribution of OSCE, he said it is evident from recent lone wolf attacks in many parts of Europe that terrorists have significantly enhanced their capabilities. He emphasized the need to ensure that the collective resolve to fight terrorism is not weakened. Naidu also congratulated Sweden for taking OSCE chair. Ann Linde, Sweden's foreign minister, is the new OSCE chairperson in office and took over in January 2021. The OSCE, with its 57 participating members from 3 continents, has been playing a significant role in the promotion of international peace and security and empowering its members to build a better and more secure future. India has called for the strengthening of security and safety of UN peacekeepers and for bringing perpetrators to justice during the informal meet of the Security Council on Peacemaking yesterday. Permanent representative of India to the United Nations, Ambassador T.S. Tirumurti, said in a tweet that he called to strengthen further safety and security of peacekeepers. He added, India also called for enhancing the use of technology for safety. In January, 3 United Nations peacekeepers were killed and 6 wounded in central Mali after a convoy struck an explosive device and came under fire. India is one of the largest troop-contributing countries to the UN peacekeeping force. India's envoy to the UN also recalled India's gift of 200,000 vaccine doses for UN peacekeepers. In February, the United Nations thanked India for offering 200,000 COVID vaccine doses for UN peacekeepers and appreciated its efforts to strengthen COVAX facility for ensuring equitable access to vaccines for all.
The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered has crossed 20.5 million in India. Briefing reporters in New Delhi today, Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan said that 71% of these doses have been administered at public health facilities and around 29% doses at private centers. Mr. Bhushan said more than 6.7 million people above 60 years and people aged 45 to 60 years with specific comorbidities were vaccinated till date. Meanwhile, the country's COVID-19 recovery rate has reached 96.92%. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back. The Indian Cabinet on Wednesday approved the Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Nidhi as a single non-lapsable reserve fund for share of health from the proceeds of health and education cess levied under the Finance Act 2007. In our hotspot segment today, we'll bring you a discussion with political analyst Shekhar Iyer on Prime Minister Swasthya Suraksha Nidhi and healthcare initiatives for the citizens.
The Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, yesterday approved the Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Nidhi, which is a single non-lapsable reserve fund for share of health from the proceeds of health and education cess levied under the Finance Act of 2007. The cess that was earlier announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget speech. As we all know, Mr. Iyer, that during the budget speech, the Finance Minister stressed hugely the well-being and health sector. In fact, listing it as the very first pillar of the 6 pillars that she used to build the budget for this year, because it's a COVID year and the last year has actually been devoted to the management and response to COVID. So the fact that this particular fund will not lapse at the end of the financial year is a very important indicator. And also it is important in the sense that it helps to enhance access to universal and affordable health care by ensuring availability of earmarked resources. Because in health, the issue has always been budgeting and public spending on health. And the idea is to actually take public spending on health to a minimum of 2.5% by 2020. Although we are far from that goal, but attempts are being made to reach there. How do you see yesterday's decision of the Cabinet?
Indeed, Aditi, as you mentioned, this is going to be a non-lapsable fund, which is basically addresses the problem of budgeting and also the problems faced by our planners in the health ministry and other experts. What happens is when they look at 2-year plan or a 3-year plan or a year-to-year plan, often the problem comes how to handle the funds, because many cases they lapse. Then again, you have to go through the process of getting fresh approval and then fresh allocation. This is to do away with all that. As the name suggests, health and education cess is collected with the aim of addressing the education and the healthcare needs of very poor families in India. Now, with the cess, unlike other tax, cess is collected for a particular purpose and cannot be diverted for any other. And the other thing is that this cess applies to all the income tax assessees. Everybody pays tax. In fact, this cess was first introduced in the Union Budget of 2018 by then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, who had replaced the earlier secondary higher education cess of 3%. Now, since then, this cess has been collected because the normal case is the tax goes to the consolidated fund, which can be used for any other purpose. But when you earmark it for education and health cess, then it is only meant for this purpose. So it cannot be used for any other purpose. And also in this year budget, as you mentioned, the post-COVID scenario where the government has decided to double our budget because the health spending has now gone up from 94,492 crore. It has almost gone to 2,23,846 crore. As you mentioned, Nirmala ji specifically mentioned about health and well-being. The whole concept is both preventive health and taking a look at the holistic health. And of course, this year, the large part of this budget is going towards meeting the COVID-19 vaccination, for which 35,000 crore has been allotted. Because the government's aim is to eventually increase the health expenditure up to 2.5% of the GDP by 2025. Even in the economic survey, it was estimated that an increase in health spend, even if you let it go up by 1%, say from 2.5% to 3%, that can decrease a lot of out-of-pocket expenditure that keeps happening. Something like when you're providing over healthcare, which is not in a very planned way, that means a lot of money is spent in different heads. So the whole idea is to do it in a more systematic way and focus on those 3 important things. One is Ayushman Bharat, the health wellness centers. The second is the Jan Arogya Yojana. Then also the National Health Mission, which has again 2 components. You have the Rural Health Mission and the Urban Health Mission. And the other important project that the government has is the Prime Minister Swasthya Suraksha Yojana.
What do you think about this scheme? Because it will help us prepare better for any potential pandemic in future, because pandemics are not going to end.
Indeed, these are very, very awesome figures. When you say that out of 734 districts, 730 districts will have those centers, which means that the rapid rate in which we are able to create this kind of facilities also goes to show, even in a country like India where resources are a big issue, if you have a very focused approach and you have an approach that takes it to the synergy of all that is available at any given particular point and in a particular place, we can do a lot more and we can cover a lot more. I think this is the best positive message that is coming out from what you just mentioned. I mean, covering 736 districts is a very big thing. And along with that, when you think of all other things, particularly if you look at PM Swasthya Suraksha Yojana, where you are going on creating more aims like institutions. And at the same time, we've also seen the kind of attention that is also being paid for creating the resource personnel. That is one of the biggest challenges, the availability of doctors. And the government has been talking of the new medical education policy also, which looks at creating a medical college created at every district so that people from that region itself will, enroll as students and qualify and work in those very areas. Because this paucity of medical personnel is another challenge, which is also an element of the country's health education policy.
I think the absolute return to the fact that preventive health is actually the bedrock of any health system, that let's not fall sick enough to be hospitalized, because that's exactly what India showed during COVID times. Our hospitalization rates remained the lowest in the world. The percentage of people on ventilators, the percentage of people on life support remained quite low, which is why our health systems never got overwhelmed during this whole process. Preventive health, as you also said, will be the focus of all future endeavors, as also of this new project that has been announced yesterday. Mr. Iyer, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.
The festival of Mahashivratri is being celebrated across India with full religious fervor and gaiety. On the occasion, the devotees worship Lord Shiva, the destroyer of evil. The devotees also visit Shiva temples to pay their obeisance to seek Lord's blessings. It is believed that worship of Lord Shiva on Shivratri absolves a devotee of past sins. The worship is said to liberate a soul from the cycle of birth and death and helps attain moksha or salvation. The United Kingdom on Thursday said that Beijing's proposed changes to Hong Kong's electoral system would further undermine international trust in China. China's two sessions concluded on Thursday with the passing of a resolution on Hong Kong, which ensures only patriots can rule Hong Kong. This is Hong Kong's biggest shake-up since the former British colony was handed back to Chinese rule in 1997, further reducing democratic representation in the city's institutions. The controversial overhaul of Hong Kong's electoral system, which comes amid an intensifying crackdown in the city, will give a pro-Beijing committee more power to choose Hong Kong's lawmakers. The legislation is expected to be announced in greater detail when the NPC Standing Committee meets at a later date, and it could be enacted into Hong Kong law within the next few months. UK's Foreign Minister Dominic Raab has said in a statement that the latest step by Beijing to hollow out the space for democratic debate in Hong Kong is contrary to the promises made by China. He added that the move can only further undermine confidence and trust in China living up to its international responsibilities and legal obligations as a leading member of the international community.
Senior Chinese diplomats will meet with U.S. officials in Alaska on March 18th and 19th. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lixian said on Thursday at the invitation of the United States, China's top diplomat Yang Xieqi and State Councillor Wang Yi will have a high-level strategic dialogue with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. The announcement comes ahead of the much-anticipated First Quad Leaders Virtual Summit on Friday, 12th March, which will be attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, and US President Joseph Biden. Will be closely monitored in China. The leaders will discuss regional and global issues of shared interest and exchange views on practical areas of cooperation towards maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday gave the final approval to the landmark $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill. It gives President Joe Biden his first major victory in office. The Congress has cleared the massive Economic Aid Plan 220-211 along partisan lines, with no Republicans voting in favor. After the vote, President Biden tweeted, "Help is here." The White House said he plans to sign the bill on Friday. The Senate has already passed the bill. Republicans in both the chambers opposed the bill unanimously. The sweeping package provides up to $1,400 direct payments this year to most adults and extending $300 weekly emergency unemployment benefits into early September.
The UN Security Council has strongly condemned the violence against peaceful protesters in Myanmar. A report.
In a statement released on Thursday, the UNSC expressed deep concern at the arbitrary detention of members of government, including State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, President Win Myint, and others. It called for the immediate release of all those detained arbitrarily. The Security Council also expressed its continued support for the democratic transition in Myanmar and stressed the need to uphold democratic institutions and processes. It also extended its support to the ASEAN initiative, calling for exercise of utmost restraint by all sides and seek peaceful solution through constructive dialogue. More than 60 protesters have been killed and some 2,000 people have been detained by security forces since the coup. On February 1st, military took over the power from the civilian government headed by the State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. The state-owned MRTV announced arrest warrants against 29 youth leaders of the protest. Police raided places in North Oklappa district of Yangon, arresting about 100 people. Meanwhile, protests continued in several townships and regions of Myanmar on Thursday. Reports of protests from South Oklappa, Dawe, Myai and Tamu in Che State are pouring in on social media. At least 6 people are reported to be killed in police firing on protesters in Myai township of Magwi region, though there is no official confirmation as yet. Tripti Srivastav, World News Desk, All India Radio.
Bangladesh will celebrate the birth centenary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the Golden Jubilee of the liberation of the country between 17th and 26th of March. Talking to media persons on Wednesday, Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan said the program will be held at the National Parade Square in Dhaka. The Home Minister said all the guests taking part in the event will need to come to the venue with COVID-19 negative certificates. Security arrangements for the dignitaries and foreign diplomats visiting the event will be made. However, no large-scale public gathering will be allowed during the celebrations because of the continuing corona pandemic in the country. And now, moving on to sports. In cricket, the first match of the 5-match 2020 series between India and England will be played in Ahmedabad on Friday. The match will begin at 7 p.m. IST. Indian team has already clinched the Test Series 3-1 and is gearing up to clinch the T20 series also. The All India Radio will broadcast live commentary of the match from 6:30 p.m. onwards on Friday. This can be heard on FM Rainbow and additional frequencies.
Now, let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press.
The Washington Post says that Congress sends Biden one of the largest economic rescue packages in U.S. history. The New York Times reports that confident of supply, more U.S. states expand access to vaccines. The Guardian writes that Hong Kong activists urge EU not to ratify new investment deal with China. The Globe and the Mail reports that thousands ordered to evacuate as Hawaii declares an emergency due to flooding landslides. Global Times writes that China's top legislature adopts decision on Hong Kong's electoral reform. Khaleej Times reports that UAE congratulates Libya for new government of national unity. VC Pramod for World News.
And before we close, a quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate Amrut Mahotsav on Friday to commemorate 75 years of India's independence. First Quad Leaders Summit to be held virtually on Friday. Prime Ministers of India, Australia, Japan and President of the US to participate in the summit. India grants 300 million Sri Lankan rupees to build 144 transit housing units in Mannar, Sri Lanka. Iran, Eswatini, Bahamas and Benin receive Made in India COVID vaccine under the Vaccine Maitri initiative. US Congress passes $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill. UN Security Council condemns violence against peaceful protesters in Myanmar, calls for release of detained persons. And in cricket, India to clash with England in the first 2020 match in Ahmedabad on Friday. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from Japan.
Yeah.
And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.